Yeah. So he said that peace protesters in America are idiots, and said they're, quote, useful idiots, and they're being funded by Tehran.
Oh, we got to get to that. We have that.
So I'll get to that in a second. So he comes into our house and he calls us idiots. Says, you idiots, give me more money. We've already given Israel $300 billion, but it's not enough. And then he mentions those poor kids in the attic. It's heartbreaking. But was your heart broken when you murdered 15,000 Palestinian children? So nearly 40,000 dead in Gaza now, almost the entire 2.3 million population displaced. And this monster, you want to talk about evil, Netanyahu is one of the most evil men of my lifetime, murdered 15,000 children, but thinks, who cares? They're Palestinians, they're Muslims, they're Christians, their lives don't matter at all. I'll just murder their kids nonstop. And then I'll get these, you want to talk about useful idiots, these schmucks that I purchased with AIPAC, and I'll get them to applaud me. Come on, little children that I purchased, go ahead, get up and applaud how I murdered 15,000 kids. By the way, most of the Republicans standing ovation, and those are the ones pretending to be pro-life. They're giving a standing ovation to this butcher who murdered 15,000 kids. You're not pro-life at all. You're pro-money. AIPAC purchased that Congress and handed it to Netanyahu, and then he used it to insult the American people.
Yeah.
Our representatives are disgusting. All right, let's break it down. So almost every human rights organization and press organization in the world says it's actually one of the worst civilian to fighter ratios in our lifetimes. The number of buildings bombed, number of people out of a home, the number of civilians killed per capita, in every measure, one of the worst in our lifetimes. He's now competing with Bashar al-Assad, the butcher in Syria, for who's the biggest butcher in the history of our lifetimes in the Middle East. So everything he said there was a lie. Endless war crimes, war crime after war crime after war crime, shooting more journalists than in any other conflict, killing more human rights workers than in any other conflict. And his idea of a moral army is, we accidentally destroyed almost every building in Gaza. We accidentally made 2.3 million Gazans homeless and destitute and in refugee camps. We accidentally killed nearly 40,000 people, but we meant to just to kill the fighters. We're so moral, just golly gee, we're the most incompetent loser military of all time. And we just keep bombing civilians after civilians and murdering their children after children after children. It was all a mistake. And then those losers, I want every one of those losers to be driven from Congress. You see those dogs? We gave $300 billion to Israel in our lifetimes. And they commit these war crimes on our behalf, and they come and call Americans idiots for protesting them and not sending the check quickly enough. And then these dogs of AIPAC sit there and go, yes. Jesus Christ. And then he says, I'm for civilization. Are you? And I don't know anyone who's done more damage to Israel, including Hamas, than Benjamin Netanyahu. Because Hamas can't make the world hate you. Hamas can do terrible damage as they did on October 7th, but only Netanyahu can get the world to hate them. He's rubbing it in everybody's faces. I'll kill anyone I like, and I own America. Look at these servants of mine. I'm getting them to give me standing ovations after they gave me $26 billion, and after I didn't listen to a word they said. And then he says, give me money so I can finish the job quicker. Do you have a final solution for the Palestinians? And then we send money for that? And then these pathetic losers that pretend to be our representatives, but are actually the representatives of any donor and lobbyist that comes by, applaud them for that? Yeah, finish the Palestinians quicker. They disgust me.
I know.
Yeah, so look, this idea that the protesters are in America are being funded by Iran is a lunatic conspiracy theory. One of the dumbest, most inaccurate conspiracy theories of all time. And you see idiots on cable news saying it without a shred of evidence. Not one piece of evidence ever presented. Because they don't, as long as it's Israeli propaganda, they will repeat it endlessly. Oh, Netanyahu says, and did you hear what he just said? He said, for all we know, they might be funded by Iran. Because even he can't say with a straight face that they have any evidence at all. And get a load of this great, overwhelming irony that all of mainstream media missed. There is somebody in that building that is funded by a foreign government. There's actually a lot of people. It's Congress. Congress is funded by AIPAC. AIPAC is theoretically American citizens that are giving money because they love Israel and they want American Congress to serve Israel above America. That is the point of AIPAC. It's American Israel Political Action Committee. Israel is in the name. Another PAC is called Democratic Majority for Israel. For Israel. So they want you to gaslight you into thinking, oh no, it's wrong to say that these guys have all been purchased. The largest donor for Mike Johnson, AIPAC. Largest donor for Chuck Schumer, AIPAC. Largest donor for Joe Biden, AIPAC. Largest donor for Donald Trump to the tune of $200 million. The Adelson family, who said you must do what Israel wants for foreign policy, and Trump did. He moved our embassy. He literally gave out US foreign policy for checks from Israel, right-wing Israeli supporters here in America. So these guys all, it is inarguable that they serve Israel. So don't come here and tell me, oh, there might be foreign funding for peace protesters who would like to keep America out of the war that you're funding by buying our Congress. Yeah, there's a foreign influence in this country, and it's Israel. And there's overwhelming evidence. All this money's on the record. Hundreds of millions of dollars on the record. Meanwhile, there's zero evidence of Iran. What? Yeah, because Iran really wants peace. And so that's their crazy. If you ever see a single anchor telling you that Iran is funding these protesters, know that they're giant liars and they're propagandists for Israel.
Okay, I want to go to graphic 9 because let's actually show you the receipts. Let's talk about actual numbers and figures here. So let's look at the pro-Israel lobby donations to Chuck Schumer. That amounts to more than $1.7 million through the lifetime of his political career. Let's go to the next one. You have Mitch McConnell. Nearly $2 million from the pro-Israel lobby to Mitch McConnell. Hakeem Jeffries has taken a healthy sum from the pro-Israel lobby as well, more than $1.5 million. I mean, the list goes on and on. Mike Johnson, as you were referring to, Cenk, has taken nearly $500,000 from the pro-Israel lobby.
Mike Johnson has not been around as long as Schumer and McConnell. So he's just getting started. His #1 donor is AIPAC. So gee, like I had a conservative ask me on social media, like it sounded earnest. He's like, I don't get it. Republicans, we're MAGA, we're America first. Why are all these Republican congressmen bowing down to Netanyahu? I'm like, brother, I don't know if you know this, but you think it's just Democrats that take money from donors? They're all bought by big pharma, big oil, every single donor. AIPAC just happens to be top 10. And yeah, Mike Johnson and Mitch McConnell, their top donors are AIPAC. It's not complicated. They're all doing it for the money. They don't. And by the way, Israel doesn't like Netanyahu. We have polling that Anna's going to show you in a second. The only people left in the whole world who like Netanyahu are people who are bought by AIPAC. And that's almost the entire United States Congress. Although to be fair, a lot of Democrats sat it out. We'll tell you that in a second as well.
You are currently watching anti-war activists protesting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech before a joint session of Congress today. Now, there were members of Congress who also protested Bibi's visit, but before we get to them, I do think it's important to show you some of the highlights or lowlights, depending on what your perspective is, of Netanyahu's speech. There were elements of it that were infuriating because at the end of the day, whether or not you agree with the point that Americans are protesting, at the end of the day, they're Americans and they should be protected, especially from foreign leaders visiting this country and smearing them. But they weren't. Members of Congress cheered him on as he said this.
Clarity begins by knowing the difference between good and evil. Yet incredibly, many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with rapists and murderers. They stand with people who came into the kibbutzim, into a home. The parents hid the children, the 2 babies in the attic, in a secret attic. They murdered the families, the parents. They found the secret latch to the hidden attic, and then they murder the babies. These protesters stand with them. They should be ashamed of themselves.
I thought it was important to include the round of applause that members of Congress engaged in and their staffers engaged in, as you have a foreign leader of a foreign country smearing Americans who are engaging in their First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and protest the war crimes that Netanyahu is committing in Gaza and the West Bank as we speak. It's funny how he totally erased that portion of it. The fact that they want a ceasefire, they want the war to stop, and they're protesting the slaughter of innocent individuals, mostly women and children in Gaza, okay? The fact that Palestinian civilians have been driven out of their homes, their legal homes in the West Bank. The fact that illegal settlements continue to be built in the West Bank. I mean, the violations of international law. Look, there is nothing that gets under my skin more than anyone from a foreign country smearing American citizens, okay? I'll give you an example. When those Polish LARPers were attacking, Americans as rednecks, and they were just mocking them. It disgusted me, even though they were specifically targeting Americans who probably disagree with me politically. Those are our people. Having foreigners attack our people and smear our people is disgusting. Having them address a joint session of Congress and smear Americans is disgusting. And watching those members of Congress stand up and applaud that was disgusting. Later, by the way, Capitol Police used pepper spray to disperse the protesters. The entire speech was full of lies. He used the family members of hostages as pawns. He used IDF soldiers as pawns during his speech, pretending as though he cares about these individuals, even though he's sending them off to risk their lives for a war that didn't even need to happen. I mean, this is the amazing thing about Netanyahu. He's the one who failed in keeping his own people safe on October 7th. And he's standing there pretending like he's the protector, that he's the protector of Israelis, that he's such a great leader. And then he has the audacity to demand not only more resources from the American taxpayers to fight this disgusting, dirty war in Gaza, okay, a genocide in Gaza. He goes even further than that. He's like, hey, you're taking too long, hurry up, watch.
Fast-tracking US military aid can dramatically expedite an end to the war in Gaza and help prevent a broader war in the Middle East. In World War II, as Britain fought on the front lines of civilization, Winston Churchill appealed to Americans with these famous words: give us the tools and we'll finish the job. Today, as Israel fights on the front line of civilization, I too appeal to America. Give us the tools faster and we'll finish the job faster.
All of these members of Congress standing up and applauding that like trained seals, it disgusts me. Okay, he's talking about preventing a broader war in the Middle East. This guy's been itching for a broader war in the Middle East, okay? Attacking Lebanon, Yemen, I mean, the list goes on and on, wanting us to be dragged into a hot war with Iran.
Yeah.
What about Netanyahu screams to the American people that he's trying to prevent a broader war in the Middle East? And then he has the audacity, as the leader of a country that had a budget surplus in 2022, to tell the American people, hey, hurry up, you're not giving us enough, okay? You haven't had a budget surplus since 2001. We want more money from you, the US taxpayer, and we want it faster. Be clear about something. We covered that story about the allegation that Iran is funding the protesters. There hasn't been a shred of evidence proving that. The individual who uttered that nonsense is Avril Haines, who used to work for a consulting firm founded by Anthony Blinken, known as West Exec Consultants. The way that they operate allows them to essentially have foreign governments as their clients without having to disclose that. And there is plenty to indicate that one of their foreign clients is Israel, okay?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, why do you think Netanyahu, along with various members of both parties, keep fear-mongering about Iran? because they're drumming up, they're garnering support for a war with Iran. We already fought Iraq on behalf of Israel, okay? Let's keep it real. I am not gonna sit around and pretend like Netanyahu isn't pushing our government to do the same with Iran. They're selling out the American people on behalf of a war criminal. And by the way, there were members of Congress who did not attend, and there was some Democratic leadership that had some strong words for Netanyahu, which I'll get to in a second. But Cenk, before we get to that, it's important for you to see this final clip. I really wanted to highlight this because the fact that he is continuing to repeat this lie is just insane to me. So let's watch. Let's go to video E7.
Israel, he said, has implemented more precautions to prevent civilian harm than any military in history and beyond what international law requires. That's why, despite all the lies you've heard, the war in Gaza has one of the lowest ratios of combatants to non-combatants casualties in the history of urban warfare.
2/3 of the deaths in Gaza are civilian casualties.
Yeah.
Okay? In fact, the IDF and various members of the Israeli government in various interviews can't even get their numbers straight. Sometimes they say, 8,000 Hamas militants were killed. Sometimes they say 10,000 Hamas militants were killed. Sometimes they say 12,000 Hamas militants have been killed. But even if you go with the high number of 12,000, keep in mind that 39,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the start of this war. I know this is a small point, but it shows you how much Netanyahu mocks our government and the American people. So when foreign leaders visit the United States, apparently their laundry gets washed for them, right? Like the US taxpayer pays for that. I don't know how I feel about that, but it is what it is. That's what happens. Apparently, and this is according to reporting by Ryan Grimm, Netanyahu shows up with literal suitcase after suitcase after suitcase of dirty laundry for our government to wash for him. 71% of Israelis do not favor Netanyahu and would like him to either step down immediately or step down immediately after the war. It is amazing that the Israeli people find him deplorable, but you have members of our Congress, our politicians who are supposed to be representing us, standing up and applauding him like trained seals. That is what we're dealing with here in America.